Coucou tout le monde, c'est Fréquence Banane et on est au Cully Jazz Festival. On est ici pour écouter Ruby Rushton. Let's go! For people who don't listen to jazz much, how would you describe Ruby Rushton? Is that how you pronounce it, first of all?
That's right, yeah, Ruby Rushton.
Ruby Rushton.
It's a tough one. I think there's it's a very contemporary sound. We draw influences not just from jazz, but also from hip hop or house music, electronic music in general, really, folk music. We've got all kinds of influences. Hindustani classical. We try and draw from all of the things that we've either enjoyed listening to or we've made. I make electronic music as well. Aiden,
I saw you were a DJ when you were younger.
Yeah, I still do. In fact, I'm DJing later this week at Kasheme in Zurich.
Yeah.
And so, as I was saying, Aiden also plays accordion.
Okay.
From the Canterbury scene, which is sort of draws more from the folk influences and bands from the 70s like Soft Machine, which have definitely had inspired us. And then Tim and I and Nick as well have been involved with the Hindustani classical project, which is incorporating a lot of like ragas, and we sort of fused that with jazz, and that's crept into the Ruby Rushton sound as well.
Was that with the Kashem people? I think I saw a post about that.
Yeah, we did actually. We were actually playing Moods officially, and then we did a sort of impromptu performance with Tim from Spirit Music Society. He's a great friend of mine, and he's coming down this evening as well, actually. And he's kind of like my Swiss plug.
Okay.
He kind of hooks up the shows, and he's our like representative in Switzerland.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. Also, how did you guys meet? Because you're 4 people. You guys have changed over the years. I think Tim, you joined later.
Yes, right. So I actually met Delawini's through teaching through schools.
Oh.
So I started teaching in schools basically, and then those teaching sax at the time. And yeah, we just met there, and then we did like an assembly, like a spiritual jazz kind of thing for the kids, and like a showcase thing. And then yeah, we just had an actual vibe.
You guys just hit it off.
Yeah.
The kids were enjoying it. They
did. And then Aiden, Nick, and I were the sort of original members. I think it really was the catalyst for it was that Nick and I were doing a session with a pop singer, and we were on tour around the world. And I think I've always wanted to have a quartet. I love John Coltrane and the classic Coltrane quartet with Elvin Jones, Jimmy Garrison, McCoy Tyner, obviously Coltrane. That's sort of like, I just love that kind of tight sound, and I wanted to have a quartet of my own, or our own. And Nick and I were on this tour, which was sort of slightly soul destroying. It was a good earner, but it wasn't particularly satisfying in terms of like creatively.
Yeah, I saw an interview you did where you talked about it. Wasn't like some big executive who had like bought it or something, and he was trying to like cut off people. I can't remember what it was.
I mean, that kind of stuff did happen.
Okay.
I think it just happens generally with pop music. They're always talking about budget cuts, and you're always it's always very much like, it's on the sort of edge of a knife, and we had to work hard to keep the gig, and we did keep the gig because we made sure that when we performed in the pop world that the journalists wrote about the horn section, because we would do like a little walk in the bar, we'd like do a little ba-da-ba-da-bow, like really like over the top.
Hopefully we'll see some of those moves too.
Yeah, Ruby Rushton's all about
I'd
that.
love to see some of that.
So we did that, but the point is that that all of that stuff's slightly soul destroying. So all the while I was kind of writing some music with a quartet in mind, which was the sort of early songs of Ruby Rushton. And Nick and I were already playing together and on this tour, so we were kind of sounding out the ideas. And then needed a keys player, and then Nick introduced me to Aiden.
Yeah, who I knew from, we grew up together in Kent.
Oh, okay.
In South East England, so we first met when we were about 16, that kind of age, started playing jazz together.
And Aiden came in around, it was probably, it was early 2000, it's probably about summer 2011 when we started getting together at your place. and Aidan had a couple of compositions as well. And that was the Two for Joy album, our first album, which we basically, this was with Hughes F. Days at the time, who was the drummer that we were working with. He was an old friend of ours that we'd been playing with for quite a while. So we got him, he was the original drummer. And we just rehearsed quite intensely over towards the end of summer and did a couple of gigs. Or did we even do any gigs? I don't think we did do any gigs. We just rehearsed like hell, and then we went to the studio on December 30th, 2011, and we recorded the whole album and mixed the whole album in a single day, because it was all budget dependent, you know.
I wanted to ask you too, because I saw a lot of footage of you guys, and most of it was like, there was the old boilerplate with...
Boiler Room,
my bad. With Youssef,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you were talking about you did a lot of live gigs.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a big difference between like recording in a studio and doing the live gigs? I mean, even when you described it, you were like walking around and like almost interacting with the public. How is it to after just be like, I guess, locked into a studio?
It's a different process, but you know, we still walk around and interact with each other. We're like, I think, go on.
The thing about recording, we still do the kind of recordings in a day or in like 2 or 3 days, because we pretty much try and play it live in the studio. So we try to keep the same kind of approach to doing a gig, the same level of energy and the same element of risk, I suppose, where stuff can still go wrong because we're all just playing together at the same time in the studio. So
have you ever failed and had to repeat?
Oh yeah. Don't talk about Ironside. Yeah. 17 takes.
17. Okay.
Yeah. So we kind of. It was a third. We kind of, funny enough, which is like actually, incidentally, that was a general rule. I remember seeing it in a Thelonious Monk. I don't know if it was a documentary or somewhere, some footage of Thelonious Monk, and it was talking about, you know, maximum they would do is 3 takes, and usually they get it in the second, you know, but if the third's needed, they go for a third. And I try to adopt that approach when we record, not because you don't want to spend too much time on a track. But this particular tune, Ironside, from our, I don't know what album it was, fourth album, it was our 4th album, I think. Two for Joy, Truly Somewhat Volume 1, Truly Somewhat Volume 2, 4th album was Ironside. And we did it at Abbey Road, and we were going to do it in a day. We should have done it in a day, but I just got hung up on Ironside, and we ended up doing it 17 times. And so then we had to come back to Abbey Road another day to finish the album because we'd wasted like all the other tracks. Because we wasted like hours trying to get it right. And then, funnily enough, once I listened back to the takes, you know, we ended up using the 3rd one. So it doesn't really, it wasn't really necessary. Like, you know, we sort of did 14 other takes for nothing.
We all learned about that.
Cost me about $1,000 in you know. But anyway, that's that.
I guess there's a lot of improv in your recordings, even in studio. You said you try to keep it live and everything. Does that mean that, like, I guess every concert, I guess, will be different? Are we gonna have a unique play on the? Because are you guys gonna be playing your most recent album, Legacy?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, we're playing Legacy. So that was, it was nice to make, you know, the sort of process with Legacy. Aidan and I had a few ideas that we'd already worked on independently, and then we came together and sort of helped finish each other's ideas off, and also like just kind of work collaboratively as well. So we wrote the album together, and then brought Nick and Tim in to do the rehearsals, and then got in the studio beginning of January. So it was a similar process to Two for Joy, where it was in quite a short space of time. We hadn't really gigged much of the material. It was kind of like straight from writing to the studio. Yeah, we didn't wait like a year to sort of like work out whether we want to like play it for a few months and then see if we want to change some bits. We kind of just went straight in.
It was very fast.
Yeah, but I think that's when you keep the energy. You know, it's important, because otherwise things become, like Aidan said about risk. You know, when you play something so many times, you can kind of know where it's going to go. You can predict it a lot more. When there's the element, when something's brand new, that risk is where the magic is.
Okay.
100%.
Actually, for your last album, I also had a question, because I think the style overall is a bit more bebop. There's a lot of drums. I find it very, well, I thought I guess upbeat, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But there was one that stuck out, really auto, with a lot of piano. Mm-hmm. Did that one have a very specific thing to it? What was the process for that song?
I wrote that before my son. I wrote that 2 days before my son was born. My eldest son.
Oh man.
Who is Otto, and I just I sort of was trying to write like a ballad. Yeah, for the sort of imminent arrival of my firstborn. So it was an emotional thing, and then I guess when Aidan and I'd written it very basic. I'd actually written it on my MPC 60 drum machine and kind of just made a loop and recorded the horn line and just made it as a reference, but didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And it wasn't. And my son was born in 2022, and we didn't come to look at it until 2024, I think it was. And then when Aidan started playing it, just the voice, because I don't have the knowledge for voicings. Like I can kind of write my own basic chords, my own voicings, but Aidan will always take it and make something better of it. And when he started playing it, it was really kind of Debussy. It sounded very Debussy-esque, and we all like love Debussy. And so then we just kind of went with that sort of French classical, modern classical feeling. But it's obviously tied in with the emotions of like, it's named after my son and all that, you know. And it was just a moment. And the other thing is, on our early albums, we kind of always, because Aidan plays the bass as well, he always he didn't often get an opportunity to solo because he's often just having to work with both, a hand on each keyboard. So it was nice for him because there's no bass synth on that. It's nice for him just to flex just on the piano, and he did a great job.
It was a beautiful song.
It is beautiful.
Nice. It is beautiful.
And the solo is really what makes it. Not for the amazing saxophone, but
Also, I mean, that is the first kind of ballad that we've ever done, isn't it?
Yeah. We did Prayer for Grenfell, which is and then we did Prayer for Yusef as well.
Okay, so
which, but I would say you're right though, because it's like we never really had a ballad with a definitive kind of tempo. It was always more like Prayer for Grenfell and Prayer for Yusef were more like a spiritual kind of like screaming whatever. Whereas I think Otto, you're right, it was our first proper ballad. But it's like you said, the rest of the album is quite hard bop.
With shadows, with the heavy drums in it.
Yeah, man.
I really enjoyed that one. That was nice.
You can talk to Tim about that.
I don't know which one it is now.
Shadows.
I just feed off these guys, great energy.
They start playing, you fall.
Yeah, that's it. To be honest, a lot of the drum parts, funny enough, are written in the studio. So we're coming together and obviously rehearse. I'll have a rough idea, but I won't know fully what I'm going to do until the day. So we'll have a bit of time to jam through the tunes and I'll rock in parts. And I'm just feeding off these guys.
Damn. You guys work so fast.
Yeah. But it's a bit, we spent years on the road doing music. Tim and I have been playing together. We've all been playing together in different capacities, not just as Ruby Rushton, but we work together. We're close as friends. We all know each other's families. We all spend time together. Where I met my wife was the same school that Tim and I were working at. Do you know what I mean? So Tim knows my wife as long as I've known her. Damn. And like my son, every time we go on tour, Otto, or whenever I call him, he only wants to speak to Tim. So he's like, "Daddy, where's T-Bone?" And then so it's always on Tim. So we're a family. So we just kind of know what we expect of each other, and we played together for long enough to know what each other wants. So I don't need to tell Aidan voices. I need to tell Tim the groove, rhythm, whatever. I don't need to tell Nick about harmonies. Everyone just works it out. Just work it out. Just come with a vibe and just get on with it.
Speaking of your history, because you've been doing this for 10 years now?
Longer. No, Ruby Rushton, we said today, what was it, Nick?
Yeah, 15. Well, end of, I guess sort of maybe halfway through 2011. Yeah, so it's about 15 years.
15 years.
And you've been doing publishing, I think, with 22A?
Not publishing, as a record label.
Oh.
So 22A exists as a record label. I mean, there's publishing as part of that, but I haven't actively set up like a publishing company.
Okay.
22A exists as a record label. I've been doing that since 2013. So actually, that was after Ruby Rushton, and we did Two for Joy in 2011, and I'd pitched it or sent it as a demo to a couple of labels, and there was interest for the first, because I'd sent demos before and either had like, you know, been rejected or just sort of like not had anything back, which is frustrating, bits of disheartening. And this album was so precious and it meant so much, so I was very careful, but it did resonate and people did kind of like get back to me, were like, yeah, we'd like to do this. And I got to contracts with a label and we were about to sign. And it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like it was like I was at Universal and I was about to sign for a 10 million advance. It was like, it was just another independent, you know, it was an established independent, but it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't a massive deal, but
it was a big deal for you.
It was just somewhere to put the album out where it was going to get distributed, it was going to get, you know, released. And anyway, I just didn't sign. Basically, I walked away from the contract, literally the paperwork, and I just walked out and I said, I just don't feel confident doing this right now. And then I decided to start 22A. And 22A was set up to put out Two for Joy, but I didn't do it. It was a 6th release. The first 5 releases were like the kind of electronic stuff and the beats that I was also working on the side.
The first 5 releases?
Yeah, so there was, the first one was me and Al Dobson Jr., the second one was Gene Basser and Henry Wu, the third one was Reginald Omas Mahmood and Mo Colours, the 5th one was Gene Basser, All My People, the first like full-length EP, and the 6th one was Ruby Rushton, Two for Joy album. So I needed to get 22A, like, because jazz wasn't a thing. You got to understand, like, jazz wasn't really popping like how it was
in UK.
Yeah, at that time there wasn't really kind of like the resurgence happening yet, and the certain tastemakers that are involved with kind of like pushing that sound hadn't really jumped on it yet. So it wasn't being played on mainstream radio or being performed on main stages. You know, it was still more of a low-key thing. Whereas like electronic music was kind of easier to get people's attention, and making these we were doing these kind of DIY type, you know, like Mad Lib, Dilla-ish.
It was just with like online platforms, it just became way easier to distribute, I guess.
No, well, I never messed with the online stuff, but like I always did physical. So actually 22A was a vinyl only record label to start with. So that, in fact, the first digital release we did was Two for Joy, because it just became made apparent to me that if I didn't do it digitally, it would miss a lot of audience. And even CD as well, I didn't do that until Two for Joy. And previous to that, the first 5 were exclusively vinyl-only releases, and still remain that to this day.
You spoke about the UK jazz scene. How's that evolved over time? You said it wasn't very big before. Has it grown?
Listen, you know, understand that the UK jazz scene has been in existence since day one, since Tubby Hayes. You know, like if you want to talk about UK jazz, since jazz has been kind of popularised in mainstream culture, like Tubby Hayes was around in the 50s and 60s in the UK, like flying the flag, you know, and all these other guys, Joe Harriott, Ronnie Scott, obviously, Ian Carr, Stan Tracy. Give some more. Like, who's the guy who did Ian Carr?
Harry Beckett.
Harry Beckett. Who's the other sax player that played with? They do Duskfire. The album's called Duskfire. Tenor player. I can't remember. That's really annoying because I'm going to get cussed for that if someone sees this. But anyway, I've gone blank. But then you've got like Johnny Dankworth and Cleo Lane and all that. There's a huge like UK jazz influence, and then it went through. It continued like, and then you had people take like Soft Machine doing the sort of fusion, like Weather Report style stuff, but in Canterbury. And then you know you went through, and then you had like people like Courtney Pine coming through. Like who's Bluey? What's the Sway Kinch? Yeah, even Jamie Cullum, you could say, you know, like because he's played our music on 3, so shout out to Jamie Cullum. But what's the sort of jazz funk thing with not Spyro Gyra, Incognito? You know, like the jazz fusion and stuff. So it's like, come on, like when this whole jazz resurgence thing came through in the latest formation and whatever, it was like. It was nothing new. It just fit the narrative, I think, of popular culture, and it was just, that's why it kind of exploded. But it's gone away again.
Damn.
It just means a different group of people kind of start listening to it, I suppose. That's what it is.
Yeah.
People talk about a resurgence of the jazz scene. It just means a whole bunch of other people kind of go, oh right, that's a cool thing, and then they start listening to it.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that the music wasn't there before, but
Exactly.
it's just been sort of discovered by a different kind of like generation or group of people.
I mean, I very much had that personally through
Yeah.
like Spotify and stuff like that. I discovered like Berlioz. I don't know.
Yeah, I know Berlioz. Yeah.
Well, that's how I discovered it personally, and it's very recent. So
Sure.
I think a lot of just young people are going into more niche like themes. I guess I don't know. And I guess jazz is having a bit more of a resurgence.
Berlioz is more like kind of jazzy house, isn't it? Like it's electronic,
bit,
like
yeah.
more kind of like Moody Man style. You know, whereas the live thing that we do, I mean, I would say like a lot of the stuff that came out during that period of the bands that were coming out, I wouldn't even say that a lot of it wasn't jazz. It was more leaning towards like Afrobeat and like you know, you've taken a lot of influence from bands like Fela Kuti or something like that. I wouldn't say there was many actual kind of bands that were playing straight up jazz as we know it, like hard bop or bebop or even modal jazz. Like, I think the word was misconstrued. I mean, what does the word even mean anyway? Because people like we've see interviews with Miles Davis. They hate the word jazz. It's like it's so they throw it around like so loosely.
It's a bit general.
Yeah, but
I'd consider very much what you do as jazz. How would you guys define yourselves? I guess I don't know.
I would say it's jazz. I mean, for me, the key elements of jazz are improvisation, but also interaction with the other musicians, and having that element in the music of uncertainty. You know, when we get up on stage, we're
The
not.
risk.
We know certain things about the tunes, but there's also certain things that are not defined in advance, and you see what happens in the moment, and you can experience that in all kinds of musical scenarios. So yeah, for me, the word jazz can be quite broad.
I guess I'm going to end with one last question. I guess full circle to the question that we couldn't record.
yeah.
But is this your first time in Switzerland? Because you said you're married to someone.
Yeah,
Swiss.
my wife is half Swiss, so I come out. I'm fortunate to come out here for like holidays. My father-in-law and my wife's family have a house in Switzerland, so we
nice.
come and stay here. But we've actually been Ruby Rushton have been before and played in Moods in Zurich.
Okay.
As part of, as I mentioned earlier, Spirit Music Society, which is my great friend Tim.
So is this like your first time in the French-speaking part?
Yeah,
of
fun
Switzerland,
actually. Although we worked out, we played Montreux in
Oh,
2011 with
the
a
Montreux Jazz Festival. Yeah.
but with a pop singer. So it was a very odd one. It was, it was
okay.
the Red Bull stage. No, I'm not shaking my head at Red Bull because actually they did some good things for us. We did it, shout out to Red Bull within reason. Not so much the energy drinks, but their music department, which I don't think exists anymore. But when it did exist, they helped fund a tour for us, and
Oh, that's nice.
it was cool actually. It was like quite fun, wasn't it? That UK one with Red Bull, and like they kind of like worked with us. It was like just do what you want kind of thing, and it was cool. But we played the Red Bull stage with a pop singer at Montreux, so we were there for the wrong reason, really. Because it was weird because I was in the hotel and I was looking at pictures of like Stan Getz or Miles Davis like sat on their balcony at Montreux, and whenever they had been there, just looked so like romantic. And I was like, wow, this I'm here for the wrong reason. I'm playing like a really like crappy pop gig. And funnily enough, that was where it all went downhill, wasn't it? That show, because I was the MD.
Oh, right.
I was the musical director for this singer, and there was a bit of a hoo-ha on stage. And after that, I got fired. From being the musical director, I was still playing saxophone, but I wasn't MDing anymore. And then it kind of like just sort of killed the vibe a lot because it was just the way it played out. And what made it just so much worse is that it happened at Montreux. And I was like, so embarrassing to be playing Montreux with this pop singer.
Because something happened on stage?
It was a mistake from the singer that I tried to correct, but actually, I shouldn't have corrected it. Just let
His
it
ego
happen.
got into...
Huh?
His ego was in play?
Hers. No, it wasn't so much that. It was just, people panic, and I don't think it's ego. I think it's just like nerves, and people kind of like lash out sometimes when they're nervous. It wasn't anyone's fault. I was just following protocol. But that's not the point. Point was, I was at Montreux playing shit music, and I wanted to be there playing our music. So
Well, now you're here.
If Montreux are listening,
Yeah.
we start with Cully. You know, we've done Moods. Now we're doing Cully. Next, Montreux. So then we'll come back to Geneva for Montreux.
Oh, nice.
I hope. Cool.
All right. Well, I guess we'll end it there. Thanks a lot for
man.
having us. It's really nice.
Yeah, man. All good.
For the small student radio.
Cool.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, man.